Revenge is a dish best served cold. And you know where it's cold? Canada, Alaska, Maine. You see what I'm saying here? Did Canada retaliate against the United States? It's an interesting question. I got that and a bunch of cruise news. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Cruise News Show. I'm your host, Tony, here with the latest cruise news updates. Well, I got a hodgepodge of cruise news stories for you today, and then I got a big section dealing specifically with the fallout of the Canada cruise ban. Here's how we're going to hit it. First, we're going to look at the saddest story of 2019. There's a little bit of a conclusion to that story. Then we're going to talk about Oceania's world cruise in 2023. I also have a couple of interesting stories about testing and vaccination and where they're getting done at. Then we're going to jump into this epic turf war going on between Canada and the United States. And we're going to try to predict who's going to get clipped. Okay, maybe binge watching The Sopranos over the last week. It could be bleeding over. And look, man, with this lineup of cruise news, I'm not even gonna wait to ask for it. Normally, I like to give you a little taste, since we're being all gangster. I like to give you a taste, and then I like to frame the value proposition. If you enjoy staying up to date on all the latest cruise news, if you like being connected to that cruise life, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. That way you don't miss out. That's normally the way I do it after I've given you a little value, but you know it's coming. The epic Canada-US throwdown. Let me just ask you to subscribe right now. Thank you in advance. Anyways, here we go. Cruise news, the saddest story of 2019. Poor Chloe Weiglin dropped off the side of a cruise ship by her grandfather. She perishes in that tragic event. The grandfather was charged with negligent homicide by the authorities in San Juan, Puerto Rico. He pleaded guilty, and yesterday he was given 3 years probation. No jail time for this gentleman. There still is a civil suit by the family against Royal Caribbean. They go to court on April the 29th. It will be interesting to see how the guilty plea plays into that lawsuit. But yeah, we're still not done with the story, but that is the latest update. Our next story is a story about cruise demand. Is the demand for cruising still there? Well, there's one use case we can examine that may give us some indication. There's a 180-day world cruise on the Oceania Insignia coming up in 2023. They put the thing on sale on January the 27th. The cheapest cabin to get into this 180-day deal, $46,000 for 180 days of cruising. And did people want it? Yes, the thing sold out on the first day. I was looking at some stats on the ship. It looks like it holds close to 700 passengers. I'm not sure how many berths went on sale on opening day, but whatever they were selling, they sold it out on day one. And in addition to that, 20% of the people that booked for the 180-day cruise extended that to 218 days. The base cruise has 96 port stops in 33 countries, including 3 full days in Antarctica. This is leaving from the US, leaving from San Francisco. If this cruise sounds like a cruise that you'd really enjoy, well, too bad. Much like a Van Halen concert in the early 1980s, if you didn't pitch a tent and camp out at the box office, you missed it. You missed it. Maybe there'll be cancellations along the way, but the Oceania, they sold out their world cruise for 2023. Who said cruising's dead? Now let's talk a little bit about testing and vaccines. I personally believe that testing will be the cornerstone for the return to travel, the return to cruising. Testing less invasive than a vaccine mandate. I think there's a lot more legal ramifications with a vaccine mandate. Vaccine mandate still could happen. I'm not taking it off the table, but one thing I think will certainly be a part of travel for at least the short term is testing. And because of that, there's a lot of places that are trying to figure out how to make testing part of your travel experience. We see that happening in the all-inclusive resorts in Mexico, where there's a testing requirement to return to the United States and other countries. So now they're figuring out a way to do testing at the resort so that part of your vacation can can be getting your test that's needed to go back home. Well, now a few hotels in Miami, Florida are trying out the same strategy. Hospitality group SBE will now make available at its 4 Miami properties a PCR COVID test where you can get the results within 24 hours. The idea is testing becomes part of your vacation stay. And this isn't just for international travelers. Right now, there are 22 states and municipalities that require some form of negative test or some form of quarantine when returning from travel, even domestically in the United States. To me, this is very interesting, very opportunistic. One of the hurdles to travel in the short term will be these testing requirements. So it makes a lot of sense that these venues, these hotels would offer testing to make that as easy as possible. It'll be interesting to see if other hotels or other popular travel destinations do the same thing. So if a hotel can become a testing center, couldn't a cruise ship become a place for vaccination? There was a story about a month ago where the port of Mobile here in the United States became a vaccination center where you could go to the port of Mobile and get your vaccine. That was interesting. That was in the news for a couple days. But this story I like even more. This is over in Switzerland. An 89-year-old cruise ship has been converted into a vaccination center. 500 capacity cruise ship. They're calling it the Shot Ship. They can get about 168 people through every 7 hours. There's 2 shot stations there. Cruise ship that has been essentially mothballed, unusable during the pandemic, now playing its part in getting things going again by serving as a vaccination center. There's a lot of vaccination news going on right now. I do believe that I read somewhere that pharmacies like CVS and Walgreens just got approval to give out some of the vaccine. So as vaccine production continues to ramp up and more places are able to give the shot, we should see a larger percentage of the population vaccinated. That should drive down the COVID disease numbers, and that should bring us back to some sort of normalcy, back to leisure travel, back to cruising, and yeah, all good stuff. All right, so let's talk about what's going on in the mean streets of North America. Let's talk about the turf war between Canada and the United States and some of the fallout. Let me answer a question first. A lot of people are saying, Tony, we hear you talking about the Passenger Vessel Services Act that says a cruise ship that leaves the United States must have a foreign port stop before it goes to another place in the United States or returns back to the same port. Just a point of clarification. The foreign port only has to be a stop on the itinerary. The order of the stops do not matter. As long as a foreign port is in play, then the ship is compliant with the Passenger Vessel Services Act for people, also compliant for the Jones Act with cargo. So as people have noted, there are cruises that go from Tampa to Key West to Cozumel, back to Tampa. Isn't that a violation? Because Tampa's in the United States, Key West is in the United States. No, again, it does not matter. As long as that foreign port is in there, then they've done the right thing. Another thing that's being brought up a lot in this Canada discussion is, okay, we got to stop at a Canadian port. Can't we just do a drive-by? Can't we just pull up to the dock, pay a little bit of a dockage fee, and go on? It could be possible, but it's not possible under the Canadian cruise ban because they banned all vessels from the water. You can't even swing your ship into Canadian water. Now, could you get an exemption just to stop at a port? I'm not sure how viable that stop and go strategy is. If you're a cruise passenger, you're going to get charged a port fee. So if you're just doing a drive-by at a Canadian port stop, you're still going to be on the hook for the port fees. The cruise lines are going to pass that on to you. So maybe it's viable, maybe it's not viable. Other people have said, well, let's start a cruise in California, swing down south to a Mexican port, kick it on up to Alaska. I think the challenge to that idea is that's not going to be a very fun 7-day cruise. And right now, all the cruises are compressed into that 7-day period. Maybe if you had 2 weeks to go to Mexico and then go to Alaska so that you could get the big fun out of Alaska, that may be possible. possible. Some people said, let's go to Russia. I don't know what the geography looks like on that, but I do think that the main thing that's going to play out is I think the cruise lines are going to look for an exemption to that Passenger Vessel Services Act. I think that is the path forward. It will be interesting to see how it plays out. Now let's talk about Maine. Let's talk about Bar Harbor, Maine. This is one place I want to go. So if you cruise up to the Maritimes, if you cruise up the East Coast during the fall, maybe out of New York, if you're cruising up to see the leaf change in Canada, oftentimes you will stop in Portland, Maine, or you will stop in Bar Harbor, Maine. You get some lobster, you get some of that local Maine flavor. Well, Bar Harbor's been saying, man, we kind of had a lot of cruise ships here when cruising was going on. Now that cruising's shut down, let's reevaluate it. So the town council there, they've been jumping through some hoops. They had an exploratory conversation, and now they're trying to make up a survey that they send out to the people in Bar Harbor. Do you want the cruise ships? Do you not want the cruise ships? Well, then you get the Canadian smackdown. You get Canada saying cruise ban for a year, and now some of the leaders in Bar Harbor's going, we would like some cruise ships here, please. They contribute to the economy. We barely survived last year because of gracefulness from landlords and creditors. What do you mean, no cruise ships? It could be a case of careful what you wish for. I don't know if they're going to continue forward with all this exploration about how they might limit or ban cruise ships in Bar Harbor, but it looks like the Canadians played their hand for them. Bar Harbor, how about that? But let's talk about revenge. Let's talk about retaliation. Let's talk about people who always have to run every story through the political filter. Holy moly. The thing I hate about the political filter is that the end outcome is you always have to find an enemy. For this story, I'm getting a lot of comments. I'm getting direct questions. Do I think the cruise ban in Canada is retaliation for the new administration discontinuing the Keystone Pipeline? I hear people very passionately, that's what's going on here. That's what it's got to be. Canada saw what the U.S. did to them with the pipeline, and now this is the comeuppance. All right, let's work through this logically. Let's take our political affiliations and set them over here. Keystone Pipeline. Energy companies in the United States buy crude oil from Canada for refinement in the United States. And the Keystone Pipeline is one pipeline that moves crude oil from Canada to the United States. The new administration came in. Part of the early executive orders was to discontinue the use of that pipeline. And here's the story as I understand it from the retaliation perspective. The Keystone Pipeline gets shut off with a supposed negative financial impact to Canada. And then in retaliation, a short time later, Canada extends their cruise ban for 1 year to impose a negative economic impact primarily on Alaska. So they're getting their comeuppance for the United States. Here's a few challenges to the retaliation story. Proponents of the pipeline argue that this pipeline results in cheaper gas for the United States, a less dependency on foreign oil outside of North America. It's more protective of North American energy positions. Isn't the logical conclusion that now that the United States isn't going to buy that oil from Canada, now Canada's just going to be stuck with that oil and they're not going to reap any benefit from producing that oil? No. Canada will now sell that oil on the open market, and some suggest that they will sell it for a greater amount of profit than they would inside of that cooperative relationship with the United States. But certainly that's not the juicy part of this conspiracy. The juicy part is the fact that Canada put a full-on smackdown against the United States in the form of no cruises to Alaska. That's a better story, right? Well, let me tell you why that doesn't make sense. It just doesn't add up financially. Let me ask you this. Have you ever sought revenge on anybody? And if so, was part of your revenge plan to do more harm to yourself than the person that you were trying to exact revenge upon? Because this is the scenario. Let's put it like this. I got a neighbor here in Florida. I got killer Wi-Fi. He wants to offset my cost of getting Wi-Fi from the provider. And so he's going to give me $20 a month, and I'm going to give him some of my Wi-Fi. Okay, this is the agreement my neighbor and I have. I guess if we're going to be all gangster, let's do something that's pretty unethical. I'm going to sell Wi-Fi to my neighbor that I'm getting from somebody else. So I'm enjoying the offset cost of the Wi-Fi. Now, at some point, my neighbor who was single, he gets married, his wife doesn't like us, and she don't want to give $20 anymore for our Wi-Fi. She wants to cut it off. She don't want it anymore. So she announces that, hey, look, I'm not going to buy your Wi-Fi anymore. Okay, that's fine. I liked getting the $20. That kind of makes me upset. Now, the thing you don't know about my neighbor and I, we host pool parties for money. So I've got a pool and he's got a pool on the other side of my pool. I have people over. I bring in the alcohol. I bring in the DJ. I charge a cover charge and I make good money hosting pool parties. Now, he does the same thing, but the challenge for him is the only way that you can get to his pool is you have to come through my pool. I control the gate. So if you want to go to his pool party, you got to come through my pool party first, and I control that gate. Now, here's the deal. It's very lucrative. At my pool parties, I make like over $4 billion a year. That's how much money I make. I'm pulling down $4 billion a year having my pool party. His pool party is not as successful. He makes maybe 1.5 billion, maybe close to $2 billion, but I'm making double the amount of money at my pool party than he is. But I'm mad. I'm mad about his new wife. I'm mad about her not wanting to pay for the Wi-Fi anymore. And so this is what I'm going to do to hurt him. No more pool party for him. And on top of that, no more pool party for me. I'll show him. I'm going to make him not get his close to $2 billion. And then to do that, I'm going to make sure that I don't get my $4 billion either. How about that? Why would I injure myself twice as much as the guy I'm trying to get retaliation against? It doesn't make sense. The only thing that makes sense to me in this whole conversation is it's that stupid political filter again. If you run everything through a political filter, you're looking for a scenario where somebody can be the bad guy. Ha ha, I told you that this guy was going to be a jerk. And now we got Canada knocking on our door, retaliating. Let it go. You guys are spinning so many cycles on this negative crap that doesn't make any sense logically. Again, are you going to injure yourself to exact retaliation? I like the story. Again, I've been watching The Sopranos. I think it's fun to think that maybe Canada's got beef and they went all gangster and cut off. It's fiction. Look, that's my take on that. I was asked the question. I don't think anything nefarious is going on. What's going on with Canada? Why the one-year cruise ban? They got a vaccine challenge right now. They don't want their COVID numbers to go up. They don't want foreign vessels coming into their land with vaccinated people that may spread the virus to their unvaccinated population. And I guess instead of stressing people out on a month-by-month or a 60-day basis, just cancel it for a year. Let people figure out what to do. That's what I see going on in Canada. I don't think it's anything more crazy than that. We're the one with the rule that doesn't allow the cruise ship to go from one U.S. place to another U.S. place. Why we got beef with Canada? The question for the comments is this: who wins in the Canada versus U.S. throwdown? No, I don't know. A lot of cruise news today. Open to any of your comments. Thank you guys so much for watching the show. I hope you enjoyed it. Please show your support by hitting the like button. This is Tony with Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.